pipeline! No pipeline! No pipeline!
This is winnable. This is totally winnable.
Most of them, of course, are citizens of Cumberland County, but most are on the path of a proposed Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Dominion and Duke, who's building this pipeline, who wants to build this pipeline, they are going to go across their land. And we're saying no. Today we're putting a foot down.
One person speaking alone may be ignored. Many people speaking with one voice cannot be ignored. Experience in Virginia brought me into contact with Robin and Linda Williams and a song that they did, which I think tells the whole story. You've heard it.
I've heard it, yes.
And it goes like this, the refrain. It's, we don't want your pipeline, we don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water and wind. We're gonna put a stop sign on Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbors, go tell your friends.
Since 2014, the partners of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, Dominion Transmission, Duke Energy, Piedmont Natural Gas, and AGL Resources proposed to build a 550-mile high-pressurized fracked natural gas pipeline from West Virginia through Virginia to North Carolina that would have scarred approximately 12,972 acres during construction and 4,370 permanently. Also, compressor stations were planned along the ACP route. Because of the hazards and environmental impacts of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, it was met with organized opposition from BREDL chapters made up of landowners and concerned citizens along the route of the ACP from North Carolina to Virginia. The original price tag of the ACP was $5 billion. Each year, the landowners continued to resist, causing delay, which increased the price of the pipeline by billions of dollars. The defeat of two large billion-dollar giant companies, Duke and Dominion, appeared to be impossible. On July 5, 2020, Duke and Dominion wrote in a press release that they canceled the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. This is a great victory for the landowners and communities on its path. Let's hear the testimonies, strategies, and words of encouragement about this victory from BREDL community organizers and landowners, so that future generations and those fighting other pipelines, such as the Mountain Valley Pipeline, will be encouraged.
ACP, Atlantic Coast Pipeline, has a long and twisted history, and Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League kind of anticipated the pipeline issue, which we learned of sometime in 2014, by several years. We had been organizing, especially in North Carolina, about shale gas, fracking, hydrofracking. We had done a series of programs, a lot of community organizing work, and a lot of pushback on the proposals that would have extracted shale gas, fracked gas, from the Triassic Basin of North Carolina and some other areas around the state. That dates back to about 2012. For example, we had a resolution go through Stokes County, which was for the county to go against hydrofracking. Well, that got us into some of those shale basin areas like Lee County, and through that organizing, we met a lot of folks, of course. In 2014, I went back again looking at some of my early records, and there was an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette which said 2 pipeline projects poised to ship gas to the southeast. And it was like a starting gun because it electrified us. It named the 2 pipelines, which we have, 2 of the pipelines we have spent a lot of energy fighting. The Mountain Valley Pipeline through West Virginia and Virginia, southwestern Virginia, and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. These were pipelines, they were certainly proposed by the industry, but supposedly to serve gas needs in the southeast. However, even in those early news stories, industry journals and whatnot, there was talk about export, and the amount of export was indeed several times larger than any conceivable growth in the need for natural gas in the southeastern region, which is where we work, 6 states in the southeast. We were off, like I said, like a starting gun. So we put a plan of action together. And one of the first things we did was pull together a strategy session in December of 2014, it was. We had a meeting bringing together all our chapters that were interested in shale gas or waste dumping, and it was a multi-issue meeting. Lois Gibbs was facilitator of the meeting, and we had a room full of people in Greensboro and put together a plan of action. The plan of action was to launch a Safeguard America's Resources campaign sometime in early 2015, which we did. So in February, just around Lincoln's birthday, there was a series of events, some of them in Virginia, some in North Carolina, some in Georgia. It was called Safeguard America's Resources. It was designed to appeal to the general public, which of course is what we do with our community organizing campaigns. So that was really the launch of the pipeline campaign for us. Between February 2016 and early 2017, we put together 8 new chapters of the Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League. We went on a mission, and our strategy was to organize communities all along the pipeline route, in this case, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline route, in every single community that the route was supposed to go. And so we did that. We accomplished that over a period of a year with Cumberland County Caring Voices, which is in Fayetteville, North Carolina, Johnson County No Pipeline, Wilson County, no pipeline. Nash, stop the pipeline. Concerned Stewards of Halifax County, which is in Halifax, North Carolina. No ACP was centered in Richmond, Virginia. Concern for the New Generation was also in Virginia. Protect Our Water. One of my favorite acronyms is POW. So all these chapter groups were comprised of people who were either landowners or who lived in communities that were threatened by these pipelines. So those 8 chapter groups that I mentioned became locally knowledgeable go-to groups for newspapers, for alternative energy groups, for other environmental groups to do programs, to do workshops, and to do sign-on letters or to show up at rallies or to help raise funds for this billboard or that billboard or radio ads and whatnot. And so the whole project was grounded in the people who were directly affected. We put an 8-day tour together in 2017, Stop the Pipeline, Roll Back Pollution, it was called. And we went from those counties, beginning in Fayetteville, working our way through Johnston County, Halifax, North Carolina, spent 4 days there. And then we skipped up to Virginia to Buckingham County, and kind of a barnstorming tour. And then we doubled back to part of the route for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So we covered 1,000 miles, literally going from community to community, and in the daytime holding usually a press conference, in the evening holding a public meeting of some kind, a public forum. Sometimes those times were reversed, but there was always something going on every single day. We'd slip in a strategy session from time to time to help kind of bolster the chapter's campaign. And we had a mock pipeline compressor station, which was a 10-foot long model mounted on a flatbed trailer towed by my truck. And we went from community to community to kind of illustrate what it would be like to have a compressor station, which was supposed to be located along the pipeline routes. This was designed to show that the air pollution would emit carcinogens. A lot of formaldehyde, a lot of benzene, for example, comes from those smokestacks because they're burning natural gas. And the noise was horrible. We recorded noises from other compressor stations and had a PA system inside of the trailer, which duplicated the sound to the decibel levels that you could hear it from nearby communities. So people in the press and everybody got to see and It made it real, it less symbolic, it wasn't so distant anymore. And so that generated a huge amount of press, you can imagine, over that a period of time. And I think that helped to galvanize public opinion against the pipeline. Over time, it has resulted in stronger and stronger organizing. I mentioned the resolutions and the things like that, pressed by local groups in their local boards of commissioners, their county government, or the boards of supervisors in Virginia. So there was a drumbeat of opposition coming locally, even though they weren't the people who issued the permitting, which happened at the federal level or at the state level. But there were several turning points in there. I built it in my backyard. That was one of my ideas, and it's a concept that we've used before with other types of environmental issues. For example, the nuke dump issues, we had a trailer with a model of an actual waste canister that would be used to ship radioactive materials around the country. So it was an idea that we recycled, in this case, for the mock pipeline compressor station. There was a lot of information, a lot of that we gathered, a lot of research that was initiated over the last 4, 5, 6 years, actually, which I think we will continue to compile and release when it's ready. For example, one of the projects has to do with heirs' properties that were handed down without a written will in some of these communities, like in Buckingham, Virginia, and many other places. So those people were victimized by the land people who came in and made a bargain with one of the heirs and none of the others, maybe the others that didn't want to sign. So that report is still underway, and that's based on original research. There's other research like that that we'll continue to use. And of course, the Mountain Valley Pipeline is still an ongoing campaign. It's kind of metastasized because now you've got the Southgate extension going from Virginia into North Carolina, in the Piedmont of North Carolina. So that campaign cannot stop. But many people had a hand in this victory. So I think we all deserve to take a 5-minute break and get back to business, because there's communities which are still being threatened. There were some trees that were cut. There were some trenches that were dug, for example, in some of these pipeline routes, a lot less than would have been. For example, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline was supposed to be completed in 2018. As was the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Neither one of those have met that target date for obvious reasons. So I think continue to campaign because of larger issues as well as the particular issues, people's land being taken for commercial export, which of all the things in that Pittsburgh Post-Gazette issue that I saw back in 2014, that's one that has proven to be prescient in that the exports of natural gas have risen to a huge extent over the last several years. That's the driver for these pipelines. They are somewhat to serve new uses. I mean, Duke and Dominion are trying to build new natural gas-fired electric power plants, which is not a bridge fuel, it's a blind alley. And so there's a lot of work to be done.
Ooh, hallelujah, hallelujah. Our family farm will still be intact. It's still our family tree, because I say it was no way that the pipeline was part of our family tree, part of our heritage. And I was just believing from that point of view of what had been instilled in me that it was going to work out. Our family farm is considered by our family as our family tree. And our family tree, I'm happy to say, due to the energy companies canceling the project, is still intact. And it was supposed to come across our farm here in Halifax County. So Dad did a lot of talking with me prior to his death in 2006. Promised me something, Valerie. I said, what's that, Dad? Don't let nobody take the land. So later that evening, I asked Mama, why did Dad keep saying that? And she told me because it had been a habit for people to come and say, we got this grant and we want to help you with your farming. And a lot of people accepted it, but later on, they came and said, you owe us this loan money. But yet it was explained that it was grant money, free to help on the farm. And so a lot of people lost their land that way. And so then I understood Dad's deep urgency, making sure that I understood that and that I had enough appreciation for the farm to understand keeping it. So Mom was in her 80s. When they started coming around, she presented me the first letter. She said, what is this all about? It was nothing, though it was from ACP, it was nothing about a pipeline. It was simply saying that we want to survey your area, never about what, and if we find artifacts, can we pass them to 501 nonprofit organizations? So later on, I found out that people were generating meetings and come and you'll learn all about it. That's what they advertised in their letters. So I started going to the meetings. And the more I learned, the more I became displeased with what was going on. They were committee meetings of the Halifax County Board of Commissioners. However, they always had in attendance ACP people. And they sent me out with this lady to go talk with her. She had just been hired with the pipeline. Like I said, they were never cordial. As soon as we got back and sat down, she told me who she was and that she was with the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and asked me why was I fighting it because they were going to get it. I said, we will see about that. The Lord is on our side. So from there on, the years went on with all of this coercion going on. We have always been the ones that had the vision for our own properties. Now here's somebody telling us what they're going to do with it. Keeping our land was more value to us than silver and gold. I had asked them not to bother my mama because she had Alzheimer's, right? Two gentlemen came out the next day anyway and told my mama, your daughter Valerie said it's okay for you to sign. That's exactly what they did. And my mom did sign. But thank the Lord, however, my son and I, about 4 months prior to this, we had taken all the land and everything out of my mom's name. So that's what saved us there. And when I went to one of the scoping meetings that the pipeline had, I met up with a gentleman, Kerry Rogers, who was then working with BREDL, and he told me what they were about. And so I was already going about my business, doing things. So I was glad to go on and become a charter member of BREDL that way, Concerned Stewards of Halifax County. They taught us methods and strategies in greater details how to do our informal meetings. So we will have the meetings to inform people as well. And with me having been in education, I knew the process already, so I had already begun that and gotten a lot of people involved. And then we began to strategize.
For me, this started out in late May of 2014. I'd heard of Dominion Energy. It was more well known here in eastern North Carolina, in the northeastern corner of our state, which is really not too far from Nash County. The upper northeastern portion of Nash County is in their service area. It was known as VEPCO, Virginia Electric and Power Company. But some years ago, they rebadged or renamed themselves and became Dominion Resources, and I think recently they even changed it to Dominion Energy. But I got a letter with their little logo up in the left-hand return address corner of the envelope, and it said Dominion Transmission. And I was really puzzled because I knew I was not in their service area or whatnot, and didn't really tear the letter open that first day I got it. I put it on the corner of my desk, and a few days later when I noticed some unusual marked trucks, I opened the letter, and it was a letter informing me about the pipelines, and they were asking permission. There was a little card enclosed for me to fill out and send back to them, giving them permission to survey my property. In the meantime, you have to put up with phone calls and unannounced visits from land agents and so forth, trying to get individual landowners to sign over an easement. February of 2015 was when I met Therese Vick, and that was at a FERC hearing in Wilson, North Carolina. She stood up to the group and introduced herself, and I made a point when there was a recess in the meeting or whatever to speak with Therese and get her card and follow up and making contact with BREDL. And that's where I started getting some traction with the BREDL organization. I got that letter back in May of 2014. I knew that the construction of a pipeline across my property would not be good for me. This was going to be transporting fracked natural gas. And a long time ago, when I heard about fracking and read up about that and developed an understanding of what the fracking process was, I was categorically opposed to it. And they were literally coming through my farm on a diagonal. They weren't just going across the corner or a chip bobber or something like that. They were coming in on the northeast corner and going out on southwest ends. It's a 70-acre farm. There are 39 acres of cropland on it. The other acreage is woodland. And of course, the land agents try to make it sound real simple. We just come through and dig the trench, put the pipe in the ground, and cover it back up and landscape it, and you'll have pretty green grass going on it in no time. They just make it sound so simple. Mm-hmm. Well, when you talk with the engineers, they let the cat out of the bag that it could be an open trench on the property for as long as 6 months. You know, all kinds of heavy equipment coming through, and they also don't bother to tell you that adjacent to the trench, they come in with dump truckload after dump truckload of gravel and pour a level of gravel so that when rainy periods happen to occur, that gravel will give a footing and foundation for their equipment to stand up. And when they get through with putting the pipe in the ground and so forth, they make no effort to remove that gravel. They just spread that clay and topsoil they're bragging about back over top of it and leave that layer of compacted gravel out there in fields. 2 easements together, it was 11.57 acres. Well, you get a calculator out. 11.57 acres out of 39 is over 30% of the productive crop acreage land here on this property. So they were getting almost a third of my farm, using my property to transport frac gas across it. And I became even more educated on what harms that the burning of natural gas and other fossil fuels is doing to our environment, and just became more and more determined to fight it and stop it.
We started getting information from the internet regarding frac gas and the harmful emissions. So I was sort of devastated, and I didn't want that because we retired here to live out our golden years because it's so green, so serene.
No, it wasn't so much going through the farming land, but we were concerned about it. And we raised cotton, and we have an orchard and cattle farm. And we depended on underground water source. We knew there would be pipes running underground. And the location of the proposed compressor station, approximately a mile to a mile from where we live. So we were concerned as to the effect it would have on our underground water source and the pollution that would be emitted.
We just went to everything that we could because we were determined that we did not want this in our area. We also found out that the American Lung Association stated that people of color are among the most at risk from air pollutants. Not only did these stations emit harmful pollution, they can also catch fire or even explode. The noise that they produced, it would be around the clock, sometimes spiking to levels comparable to a 747 passenger jet taking off. We had to get involved. What was really amazing, it was so many people from different parts of Virginia, from different counties, that came and supported us because some of them are also having the same situation done to them. When we first started, we were having meetings at the Union Hill Baptist Church that we met every Sunday and invited people to come, and people as far away as Northern Virginia came. That was really amazing.
And we had experts, also scientists involved. We had the technology as to the effect of these air pollutants. There were research was done by Dr. Ford. From door to door, a group came together for both of the pipeline, MVP and ACP. And but the door to door, the household would gather information. And this is what was very important, because in gathering this information, we also was gathering facts to combat this misinformation that was put out there. We were also gathering the demographics as well as to who lived in the community.
It took maybe about a week to 2 weeks to go to the door-to-door with the questionnaire. And we had a lot of help from the students at UVA, University of Virginia, as well as other colleges or universities. After we got all the information, that was compiled, and a lady by the name of Lakshmi, she was instrumental in getting that started. Sharon Ponton was also instrumental in helping us going forward. They were saying that we only had 29% African American in our community, in the Union Hill community, whereas we had closer to 80%.
83 to 85.
Majority African Americans in this community. I also want to just say, as activists and community leaders, we have a responsibility to speak out against corporate environmental racism, against these governmental agencies that sign off on these schemes. We should not allow Dominion to sacrifice the health and well-being of minority communities for the sake of profit over people. They just wanted to use us. To me, we were just like guinea pigs. And they thought that we were just going to roll over and play dead. But when it comes to health, not only our health, but everyone else's health, we have to fight. We have to stand up and fight.
Building these toxic, polluting structures that seems to be located in people of color and your poor communities.
I'm getting out of the car and my phone rang, and it was one of the UVA students, activists, that called me and said, "Did I hear the news?" And I said, "Well, what news?" And she said that the project had been canceled. And I said, "No, you're kidding me." It was unbelievable, but it was amazing. And somewhere down the line, I had a feeling, I just had this feeling that we were going to prevail. But it was with the help of our Lord and Savior. That's why we came as far as we did. He was there all the time. He's in control. And I thank God for him. But I also thank God for all the other people that helped.
It means that whatever we are going through, whatever we are faced with, 'cause without God, we can do nothing. Then we proceed. We have to fight against all these injustices.
Yes.
We have to join, as the late Congressman Lewis said, join the good fight.
Yeah, the main thing is that don't give up. Just keep on fighting.
Yes.
And as a result, this is what happened.
Yes.
They decided to cancel the project. And I'm so thankful for that.
As our pastor mentioned at one of the board meetings, it's like David in the Bible was fighting Goliath. Goliath was much stronger, had all of the weapons of this world, but David had God on his side. We have to take a stand.
It wasn't coming across our property, but we live within 900 feet of the proposed route. Well, the cousin that got the piece of property where the pipeline was coming across, she lives in Alabama. Well, make a long story short, once they found out that it was not coming across our property, we didn't hear another word from them. It was like we dropped off the face of the earth with no more contact until we started going to the meetings Mr. Terry Rogers held down at the school, and that's how we got involved with it. Cut down the trees around the pond so it would be nice and neat and everything. And this one tree, he left it there and he said, "Boys, this will be a good tree one day. It'll be a good shade tree as much as y'all like to fish. It would be a beautiful place for you to, come and just sit and fish and enjoy being here." Well, that thing, I can't describe it. It was just a huge, beautiful pine tree. It looked like a picnic area around it. And it was right on the edge of the right-of-way. There was no reason they had to cut it down. But I was out in the yard one day, and I heard this loud thump. And I looked over, and that tree was on the ground. Well, I jumped in my truck and went over there. I'm not going to say what went on, but we had a few words, me and the people there, and one of the gentlemen, and really, really what set me on fire and what made me that day determine that I am not going to give up, will not going to give up, no matter what family member says, whatever they want to say, I will not give up, and I will stand and fight this thing till the day I die. But the gentleman looked at me and he said, now this was a Dominion gentleman. He had his Dominion hat on, his vest and all that stuff. And he looked at me and he said, "You see that that stop over there with the red tape on it?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You see that stop over there?" He pointed to my right. He said, "You see that stop over there?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, everything between these two stops belongs to Dominion." And I said, it does. Right then, I said, "This is my grandfather's farm. This does not belong. Nothing belongs to Dominion here. And that right there is really what puts fire in my heart. Even today, that tree is still laying in the field. It's dead. It's all grown up around it, just weeds. It looked like you took a state park and just let it go. Every time there was a meeting, every time there was a walk, every time there was a door open, every time there was a chance to go sit on the governor's front doorstep, I'd committed to it that day. I was telling my wife, we're not going to sit here and just let them just steamroll over top of us. So we just started going anywhere and everywhere. We even went up to Johnson County, Miss Francine Stevens' chapter there in Johnson County, went to some of their meetings. I'll never forget, I was sitting here on a Sunday afternoon, and a friend of mine sent me like a little text telling me it had been canceled. I can't describe the feeling because all through the time, like I keep thinking back about what that man said about it belonging to Dominion, the anger I had and everything. But when I got that message, it was like something very humble, because I was thinking about all the people that had worked so hard and all the people that had stuck through it and all the people that had kept on going. No matter, people at church would tell you, you can't fight it. No use fighting. They're going to win. Your local politicians would tell you they're going to win. I still wake up and wonder if it's true. You it's something that you've fought so long, and you've had so many people that you thought know what's going to happen. People that can change things tell you there's no use, and it's like a dream. It's a prayer come true is what it is. It's a prayer answer, not a prayer come true. It's a prayer answers. And I just hope and pray that Mountain Valley Pipeline will suffer the same fate as Atlantic Coast Pipeline, because those people are very special too.
We had to come up with a name, and I came up with the name Concern for the New Generation, because I thought, putting it out there, being concerned for the new generation is about the young people that's coming up. And I thought with that ideal, it really, really made me feel good about, that name. We had to do a lot of legwork, set up a lot of meetings, go out in the fields and try to find the information that we need to help us. And then when we went out to talk with DEQ, the meeting we had with them they talked it pretty good, but after we left the meeting, they were supposed to get back with us, and they didn't. I didn't think that was nice. So with our county, with them coming in here, with all the letters that I wrote and read, they was leaning in our direction, but once the money was put out there, they decided to go ahead on and give them their permits. That I wasn't too happy with. I didn't give up. I pushed on so I could let them know that in here in Union Hill neighborhood that we do matter. I feel pretty good about the way everything turned out. Not directly through my land, but I'm only about 2.5 miles from it. Yeah, it was our neighbors, and then we starting to have other people come in that was not from the neighbors. And then we had Yogaville come in and help support us. We had a couple of people from Richmond to come and support us. And we also had Reverend Barbara, whom I really enjoyed because he really put it out there with the maps and everything and explaining it to us. And I got also enjoyed because I got to meet him. And he had a couple of meetings, and I attended both of them, and I spoke as well. We had pretty good little turnouts. I've had pretty good moments because a lot of the notations that I wrote and read, I pretty much think they kind of got the message to what we were trying to send out to them. Well, that was a Sunday morning, And when I got the call, and I was very excited. It made my day. I couldn't believe it. I was like jumping up for joy. And I'm like, so in other words, with the fight we all came together and pushed it. And that made me feel good, because I had people tell me, oh, y'all need to give it up because you're not going to win. And my answer to them was, I'm going to fight to the end. We made a banister, Sharon Ponton and myself. We got the people to sign it. And what we did with it, we passed it on to the next compressor station area that they were trying to come into. And so I felt good about that. And that was the ending of our celebration with the cancellation. And through it all too, I really enjoyed it too, because I got to meet some interesting people. And with me losing my husband around about that time, it kind of put me in something to kind of help me. And that's what motivated me to push on with it. And I loved the people that I got to meet in the process. Now we have another threat for Buckingham County is mining and drilling for gold. That's going to be, I know, the next on the agenda, because that's is pretty much is going to put us in a threat. That the same thing that the compressor station was going to do is going to affect the wells. The drilling probably mess with the foundation of your homes. Then there'll probably be chemicals. So that's worth reaching out, fighting for.
I own a farm in Johnston County that I inherited from my father in 2010, and it's been in the family a long time. I found out in 2016 that Atlantic Coast Pipeline was going to run a huge pipeline under tremendous pressure on the gas inside, right through the middle of the field, and destroy the value of my land. That really upset me. So I attended a meeting that BREDL sponsored in Smithfield, and came out of the meeting as the president of the Johnston County Action Committee against the pipeline, something I had not intended and did not relish, but I pursued it heavily, worked hard for a number of years. The type of person that was needed was someone who really was a people person, which I'm not, but I got a chance to write many, many articles and to delve into the research behind the pipeline and to try to let others know what the dangers were. The value of my group, I think, came in several places from people who were people and got out and spread the word around and were willing and able to help with the work we did, including some radio shows that we did on the local radio station, and the walks we did, and the work with BREDL, with Lois Gibbs. I think the thing I enjoyed the most was listening to Marvin Winstead's interview on TV, which was just excellent, and I'm hoping turned a lot of people around. So there was nothing for me until BREDL came along. And I was really grateful for that organization and for the people in it who were down to earth and tried to help, although the whole process, I doubted that we would come through on top. But I did write a lot of letters, and I made a lot of speeches, and I saw others doing the same. I remember the first night when Kerry Rogers came and said, "We can win this thing." I so discredited him that I almost thought of him as a charlatan trying to organize a losing situation for us. But he certainly proved right, and I appreciate his doing that. Had he not come, I don't think Johnston County would have organized. And although we didn't have a lot of members, I think we made a difference. We talked to the firemen group in the county to make sure they understood the danger and the hazards of trying to fight an explosion if one happened. And one of our members was a volunteer fireman, so that went well. We had members who talked to other farmers. One member in particular showed the result of a very small pipeline that had gone through his cornfield 20 years ago, and how the crops still didn't grow over the disturbed earth. And then we had several farmers who spread the word around, and a woman who was elderly and retired who used her knowledge of people in her church and neighborhood to spread the word, because we found out that people didn't know that the pipeline was coming unless it was on their property that had been just passed by them. The most exciting day that we had was when a lady from Meadow and I made a sign that warned of the dangers of the pipeline for Meadow school children, because it was coming within a mile of the school. And we posted that sign coincidentally at a service station just down from the school. The day that school started back, the principal called me. He was inundated with parents wondering what was going to happen to their children. They hadn't heard a thing about the pipeline, and here they were seeing a thing with a fire streaming up and possible dangers. So we took it down because he couldn't even run the school with it up, but it got a lot of attention. So that was kind of exciting. My daughter, who set up with the news, sent me a screenshot of WRAL's news just as it broke. And it was on a Sunday afternoon that it was announced. And I happened to be in the bathroom at the time. My husband came running because I screamed so loudly. He thought I was in dire straits. So it was the scream heard around the neighborhood, I guess. A scream of happiness and relief and disbelief that it could possibly be true. On a broad scale, I am hopeful for the first time in 4 years that because I've seen justice take place, economic justice and social justice and environmental justice, in a way that's so missing in our society. And this just gives me hope that even though it was the ACP that made the decision, it still turned out in the right way. And maybe it will turn out in the right way for so many other things that are wrong with the world we live in.
We don't want your pipeline. We don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water and wind. We're gonna put a stop sign on Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbors, go tell your friends.